The tow truck's chain rattled like a warning shot, and, honestly, I almost laughed. Just that short, sharp bark you let out when things get so absurd it's either laugh or scream. Picture it. You're sipping your morning coffee, already thinking about work emails you're gonna ignore, and you spot a flash of bright orange outside your window. That's when you realize it's a tow truck. And the guy's eyeing your boat, your pride and joy, like it's just another piece of junk. And there's Karen, queen of the HOA, arms folded so tight she might snap in half, practically salivating over the power trip she's about to take. Let me back up a sec. This boat, it's not just fiberglass and faded paint. It's my escape, my one guilty pleasure, the last thing that makes me feel like myself. When the walls of suburbia start closing in. And here comes Karen, waving a stack of half-legible HOA printouts like she's reading the riot act, barking about aesthetics and community values. The tow driver looks like he'd rather be literally anywhere else, muttering about some violation, but refusing to meet my eyes. You know what I mean? The whole scene was so over the top. It was almost funny. Almost. So I walk out, real slow, take a sip, and snap a photo for good measure. Karen loses her mind, starts screeching about consent and privacy, which, coming from the same woman who lobbied for those ugly security cameras on every corner, is peak irony. I tell her point blank she's trespassing and this tow's not authorized. The driver suddenly looks like maybe he'll pass on the $50 Karen promised. I mention the sheriff, total bluff, but Karen's jaw clenches like she just bit a lemon. The driver gives up, unhooks the chain, and backs off, apologizing so fast he nearly trips over his own feet. But that was just the opening round. Karen stomps back home, but the war isn't over. Oh, not even close. Suddenly there's flyers popping up on mailboxes about unsightly vessels and standing water dangers, like my boat's single-handedly starting a mosquito epidemic. It's not about the boat. Never is. For folks like Karen, control is the real game. My boat was just a target. I played it cool, kept the lawn trimmed, polished the hull till it shined, waved at her every chance I got. And then, because life is stranger than fiction, a freak summer storm hit. Gutters turned into rapids, lawns into ponds, and Karen's backyard, that perfect, overmulched slope, turned into the neighborhood's newest lake. That's when inspiration struck. I untied the boat, eased it through my side gate, and floated it straight into Karen's brand-new backyard lagoon. By the time she noticed, half the neighbors were out with phones. Laughing, Karen came stomping out in soggy yoga pants, shrieking for me to get that thing out of here. I shrugged. Hey, it's the only body of water big enough around here. Sharing's caring, right? The cops showed up. Even they had trouble keeping straight faces. One of them pointed out it wasn't illegal to float a boat on naturally occurring water, on someone else's property. Karen sputtered and raged, but this time, nobody was buying what she was selling. That should have been the end of it. But when someone like Karen gets embarrassed in public, it's like a switch flips. The next morning, my boat's still sitting in the middle of her mud-caked lawn, grounded like some monument to petty revenge. Karen's on the phone, threatening legal Armageddon, screaming about property values and criminal negligence. The cops call it a civil matter and tell me to move the boat when I can. I hire a proper tow company, mostly just to annoy her with all the mud they track across her grass. The whole neighborhood's talking about Lake Karen. The Facebook group is lit up with memes and jokes. People who've never dared cross Karen suddenly finding their voices. And then, for the first time, the rest of the HOA board finally steps in. Mark, the president, a numbers guy, hates drama, reminds everyone that only the whole board can issue fines. Not just Karen. Her reign's starting to crack. But the real twist? Karen calls an emergency meeting, complete with poster boards, charts, and a pitch that would make an infomercial look subtle. She paints my boat like a floating biohazard, says it'll destroy the community. Someone asks if toy boats count. The room cracks up. Her motion dies before it's even read. And just like that, the tide starts to turn. People who barely know me come up after, shaking my hand, sharing stories about Karen's other crusades. For the first time, I see her control slip, see people actually breathe. But, of course, she doubles down, brings in city code inspectors with anonymous complaints, tries to get me cited for everything from mosquito breeding to improper storage. I invite the inspectors in, show off my clean yard, Let them see for themselves. Karen stands across the street watching, arms crossed, waiting for her victory. But the inspectors shrug, say there's nothing wrong. She tries to rally Facebook again, but now she just gets memes. The harder she pushes, the more ridiculous she looks. That's when Steve, my neighbor, tells me Karen's organizing a petition to ban all boats. Mine is fishing skiff, even kid kayaks. The thing fizzles out. People are done with her. But Karen doesn't get the message. She tapes a final warning to my door, demanding I remove the boat from the entire neighborhood, as if she's some suburban warlord. I keep the letter as a trophy, laugh every time I pass it. Then comes the annual HOA summer fair. Karen's in charge, her last grasp at relevance. So, I set up a neighborhood boating education booth, photos, toy boats, the works. Karen loses it, but I've registered it all proper. Neighbors love it. Kids play, parents share fishing stories. Karen's left muttering at her lonely booth about bylaws and property values, while I sign up half the neighborhood for imaginary boating lessons. Next, she tries to have my boat towed again. Only this time the paperwork's a joke, and Mark, the real HOA president, backs me up on speakerphone right there in the street. Karen's mask slips for good. The board finally moves to impeach her. Neighbors sign the petition. Stories of her past crusades pour out. Halloween decorations, skateboard ramps, lawn gnomes. Karen spirals. Patrols the block like a failed hall monitor, yelling at everyone, becoming a local meme. Admiral Karen, ruler of the suburban seas. She's removed. The quiet is almost deafening. No more flyers, no more Facebook rants. Kids play, people linger outside, the neighborhood breathes again. But Karen's not done. She takes her complaints to City Hall, files every form she can find. Then, fittingly, the rains return. Another flood. Karen's backyard becomes Lake Karen, round 2. This time, it's a party. Neighbors bring lawn chairs and coolers. I float my boat out. And the news shows up. Karen's meltdown goes viral, and suddenly she's infamous all over town. The city finally investigates, fines her for ignoring drainage codes she'd refused to install. And Karen disappears. Curtains drawn, porch light off, like a ghost. The neighborhood changes. No more fear, no more micromanagement. People breathe, laugh, live. And me? I just wanted to be left. Alone with my boat. But sometimes, all it takes to change things is to stand your ground. Then let your enemy do the rest. So, was I the villain or the hero? Guess that depends on who you ask. But if you've ever dealt with someone like Karen, you know, sometimes the best revenge is just floating through the storm and letting them drown in their own mess. What do you think? Was I right to fight back, or did I just pour fuel on the fire? Drop your take in the comments, share your own HOA horror story, or just let me know where you're watching from, because something tells me every neighborhood's got a Karen.